Toyota thumbs its nose at volume brands who've abandoned the citycar segment and brings us one here, the Aygo Cross. But it's a city car with a bit more pavement presence than those you might be used to. In terms of the statement it'll make at the gym, it's a world away from the old Aygo. Plus, it's economical, promises to be fun to drive, and can even be had in semi-convertible form. Trendsetters should form an orderly queue.
In the motor industry, everyone's got their own perspective. Take city cars. Two of the industry's biggest players, the Volkswagen Group and Stellantis, say that segment is effectively dead. But Toyota, the world's biggest car maker, disagrees, which is what's brought us this car, the Aygo Cross. It's pronounced Aygo Cross, by the way, like the Yaris Cross, Toyota's smallest SUV, the Cross designating the fact that the Aygo has gone all crossover on us. This, it seems, is the Japanese maker's strategy for justifying this model's continued existence. In the Aygo's previous two incarnations, launched respectively in 2005 and 2014, it was produced as part of a joint venture with Stellantis brands Peugeot and Citroën, whose 108 and C1 models were built alongside the Aygo at a jointly owned factory at Kolin in the Czech Republic. Following the discontinuation of 108 and C1 production in 2021, Toyota decided to take full control of the plant, then redesigned the Aygo to take a shrunken version of the Yaris Super Mini's TGNA GAB platform before starting production of this resulting Aygo Cross model at the factory alongside the Yaris and Yaris Cross in readiness for this car's launch here in spring 2022. Now you're up to date. Ever since we first saw the Aygo back in 2005, one thing has been common about it: the little 1-litre 3-cylinder petrol engine beneath the bonnet. The technicalities of modern powertrain development have passed this unit by, but nevertheless, it reappears again here, thrummy and relatively feeble as ever, but still quite sufficient for the needs of a city car weighing less than a tonne. You might have expected this Aygo Cross model switch to the underpinnings of a 4th generation Yaris to yield up that Super Mini's frugal 1.5-litre hybrid engine, which will fit but will never be required to because it would add 50% both to weight and price. It feels like heresy to say it in these days of evangelical battery power, but cars this cheap don't need electrification and shouldn't have it until that apparently far-off day when the industry works out how to provide such a thing at a price that younger people and lower-paid workers can afford. Given that the pricing of this Aygo Cross is already stretching the limits in that regard, you can understand why Toyota chose to equip it with an engine 2 decades old, finessed for emissions over the earliest models, Daihatsu-derived 1KR unit, but otherwise hardly much different. It's certainly not much faster, available only with 71 bhp and a puny 93 newton meters of pulling power that makes you thankful for the lightweight underpinnings. The high biting point of the 5-speed manual version most will choose means that lots of revs are needed to avoid stalling when setting off, and for the same reason reversing uphill can be a little clutch cremating if you're not careful. But the shifter has a nice short throw, and if you're quick with it, the car feels nippy in its urban jungle habitat, which is actually illusory because it's not really very fast at all. 62 miles an hour from rest is quoted at 14.9 seconds for the manual version we're trying here. But on the open road, it manages to feel slower even than that figure suggests, straining its way up to the kind of double-digit top speed, 98 miles an hour, that you might have thought was reserved for either your dad's 60s saloon or a modern EV. For the alternative CVT automatic model, which somehow feels more leisurely still, the figures are 14.8 seconds and 94 miles an hour. Not that any of this really matters much. As we've suggested, the Aygo Cross is fun to jink about in town. And fun too if you take the twisty way back from the school run, thanks to well-weighted steering, tremendous traction and excellent body control. It doesn't even fall apart as an ownership proposition where you'd expect it to on the odd highway-based longer trip, thanks to the decent ride and refinement that settles down quite a lot once you get on a major road and moderate your right foot. The move to a crossover theme hasn't delivered any rough road prowess, of course, but the 11mm increase in ride height might make the odd urban speed hump a little less daunting. Toyota says that this model's 72mm shorter front overhang in comparison to the Yaris will make for easy parking and reckons that this car is designed for the narrowest streets, suggesting that its 4.7 metre turning circle is one of the tightest on the market. The brand also points out that visibility has been much improved by raising the seating by 55mm and making the A-pillars 10% steeper. We've noticed all of this around town and been pleased to find that ride quality over poorer urban surfaces, presumably aided by the lightweight, is actually not bad at all, even with the big 18-inch wheels fitted to this test car. And an impressive array of camera safety kit for a car this small, and you end up with a decent tick list of Aygo Cross attributes, if you can justify the price that Toyota wants to charge for it. Toyota calls this a crossover unique in the A segment, a debatable boast that better established rivals would doubtless take issue with. Suzuki launched the market's very first SUV-style city car, the second generation Ignis, as long ago as 2016. But Toyota was watching and saw in this concept a way to prolong the life of a segment that quite a few of its competitors were falling over themselves to pull out of. The brand eventually, in 2021, producing the Prologue concept car that previewed this Aygo Cross. Designed in Brussels, made in the Czech Republic, with engine and transmission sourced from Poland, it's the first model ever fully developed by the company's European division and won't be offered beyond this continent. You can't profitably sell a car of this size without substantial economies of scale, which in this case were provided by a switch to the TGNA GAB chassis used by the fourth generation Yaris and Yaris Cross models. Inserting a platform originally developed for a Super Mini meant a step up in size, of course, but the dimensional upgrade is modest. The Aygo Cross measuring in 3.7 metres long and 1.74 metres wide, which makes it 235mm longer and 125mm wider than its more conventional predecessor. It's 50mm taller too, which is important to emphasise a crossover vibe, underlined by thick plastic wheel arch cladding, an 11mm rise in ride height, a prominent front skid plate and colour-contrasted flared wheel arch surrounds, shrouding larger 17 or 18-inch alloy rims. You can specify a fabric roll-top roof as well. At the front, where signature double trapezoid styling delivers a recognisably Toyota feel, it's a trendy-looking thing with a raised bonnet silhouette fashioned to deliver the high-lift look of an urban crossover. Most models get these beady front fog lamps that flank a huge lower intake that extends up into the slim grille. This darkly themed nose section contrasts with the Spice-inspired colour palette that headlines four striking shades: cardamom green, chili red, ginger beige and juniper blue, all of which can contrast with bitone black paint to create the required impact when you're parked outside the gym. This top variant gets keen look, full LED headlamps too, branded with the model name. As you can see here at the rear, when those bitone highlights feature, they extend down to these rear corner panels, and the effect is actually quite striking. Further up the glass tailgate is a more familiar Aygo touch. You do, though, from this perspective, notice the narrow spindliness of the wheels, which are just 5 inches wide. But that's all part of a drive to pare excess weight from this car wherever it could be found. There's certainly none in the basic structure, which has the lowest body-in-white weight of any A or B segment car. Right, time to take a look inside. The previous Aygo's cabin claimed to be funky, but wasn't. This is much better. Hard plastic still abound, of course, across the bold, playful dash design, but that's okay in this class of car, as is the exposed metalwork on the door tops. It helps that you sit higher than you'd usually expect to in a city car, 55mm higher than in the old model, and your view out is further aided by a raked-back A-pillar. It feels more spacious too, thanks to the way these front seats have been set 20mm further apart, increasing shoulder space by 45mm as part of the shared interaction cabin design. And assuming you've splashed out a bit on trim choice, there'll be more than a touch of colour interior highlights matching the spicy exterior shades to give the dashboard and the centre console a distinctive look. Embellished, of course, with screen tech, though you won't get one this big unless you end up spending an awful lot more than you'd originally intended to on your Aygo Cross. This is Toyota's freshly developed 9-inch HD Smart Connect setup with cloud-based navigation, over-the-air updates, wireless smartphone connectivity and the option of a JBL premium sound system. But you might quite reasonably feel all that to be somewhat excessive for a little runabout, in which case the 7 or 8-inch Toyota Touch multimedia screens fitted further down the range will prove quite sufficient, particularly as they also allow you to use your apps via Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, albeit with a wired connection. Plus, they also work with Toyota's My-T smartphone app, so you can remotely interact with your Aygo Cross when you're away from it. There's no accompanying full-width screen in the instrument binnacle, of course, this cabin being built to a budget, but the analogue speedometer you view through this over-buttoned, leather-stitched wheel is accompanied by rev counter and fuel gauge readouts that take the form of illuminating digital segments. With the whole layout pushed to the outside of the binnacle by a black and white trip computer screen that's larger than you'd expect to find in a budget scoot. Physical buttons control the temperature, and if you want even more control over ventilation, there's the option of specifying the canvas sunroof we mentioned earlier. It's electrically powered rather than manually operated, which adds somewhat unnecessarily to the price of this option. Provided you can ignore the tinny sound when the doors clang shut, build quality seems okay, but it's pretty disappointing in this day and age to get an all-new design whose steering wheel only adjusts for height, not additionally for reach. Chunky rear pillars combine with the small-ish rear window to make rearward vision occasionally challenging, so it's just as well that a reversing camera, rather impressively, is standard across the range. Rear parking sensors aren't, unless you stretch to this top-spec model. The seats are okay for short to medium-length journeys, and even on slightly longer trips, we've found they offer decent thigh support. Cabin storage space isn't overly generous, the door bins being slim, and there being nothing between the seats unless you reach back for the rear cup holder. Plus, rather unforgivably on an urban runabout, a ticket clip has been omitted from the sun visor. But there's a huge glove box and 2 primary cup holders reside in front of the gear lever, with space for an optional phone charging mat ahead of that, and a USB-A port and 12-volt socket just above. The Aygo Cross enjoys a wheelbase length increase of 90mm on its predecessor, but it's pretty clear, even before you get in, that this hasn't done much for rear seat space. The door aperture is restricted to the point where it won't be that easy for parents to lean in and strap up offspring. And once you get inside, things aren't much better. Yes, of course, cars of this kind are always going to be small at the back, but models like Kia's Picanto have shown that it's possible to do better than this. An averagely sized adult will almost certainly need cooperation from those ahead to be able to sit in any way comfortably, and the headrests are of the sort that dig uncomfortably into your shoulder until you raise them. Worse, there are only 2 seats back here. Rival Kia Picanto and Fiat Panda Cross models find space for 3. And the windows don't open conventionally. You can only angle them out using these catches. All of which might not be so bad if the restricted side glass shape didn't combine with the dark headliner to create a rather coal hole-like atmosphere. This, of course, would be much improved if you'd specified the optional canvas roof on the rare occasions you had it open. But even then, there's a problem because when closed, that soft top reduces headroom quite a lot. Toyota's position on all this is that these pews are usually only occupied by small children or shopping bags. If that's the kind of life you have planned for your Aygo Cross, then fine. If not, we'd suggest you think carefully. At least things are a little better out back. Well, assuming you don't mind this super high loading lip anyway, caused because Toyota has persisted with the previous model's cost-saving trick of not providing a tailgate fitting a lifting glass panel instead. There's a deep cargo area that's 231 litres in size, 60 litres more than you got in the previous generation model. But that's still 24 litres less than a rival Kia Picanto Crossline, though, and 36 litres less than a rival Suzuki Ignis. Bear in mind that if you go for a top variant like this and specify the optional JBL stereo upgrade with its 200mm subwoofer, capacity falls to 189 litres. There's no real space beneath the felt boot floor, certainly no space for a spare wheel, just a tin of sealant along with a compressor. And the parcel shelf is fashioned from flimsy fabric. Floor tie-downs are missing, but you do get a couple of bag hooks. You can pull these little grey straps to retract the rear bench, irritatingly split 50-50 rather than more conveniently 60-40, but there's a pronounced step between the boot floor and the seats when you do so. Seats down, the Aygo Cross offers 829 litres. Aygo Cross pricing started at around £15,500 at the time of this model's launch and at the time of our test in autumn 2022. That might be near on Super Mini money and a little more than you might expect to have to pay for a car of this size, but you get plenty in return, as we're about to see. The figure we've just quoted you gets you into an entry point pure spec model. As with the rest of the range, at this level you've the option of paying £1,000 more for an automatic transmission as an alternative to the standard 5-speed model. All variants share the same 72 horsepower, 1 litre vvt-i conventional 3-cylinder petrol engine. Toyota thinks that most Aygo Cross customers will avoid base trim and settle on one of the two plusher options. There's the mid-range Edge model, priced from just over £17,000, or the top exclusive version that we're trying here. But by the time you get to exclusive trim, you're looking at an outlay of close to £18,500, and you could easily be looking at a £20,000 Aygo Cross if you chose the automatic exclusive model and added in a few well-chosen extras. £20,000 for an Aygo? Did we ever think that day would come? To be fair to Toyota, these prices aren't that far above what you'd pay for obvious competitors in this little niche-like segment. City cars as a genre are a vanishing breed, and city cars that, like this one, pretend to be crossovers are even rarer. Nevertheless, we'd pick out three you might also want to consider, all much older designs than this one. Kia's Picanto Crossline, like this Toyota, shuns electrification with its little 66 HP engine, and at the time of this test was pricing in the £15,000 to £17,000 bracket. But that's merely a city car with a few added dressing panels. You could say the same of our second potential option, Fiat's Panda City Cross, which costs from around £15,500 and uses a 70 horsepower mild hybrid engine that still doesn't quite manage to be as economical as the conventional unit in this Aygo Cross. Nor does the mild hybrid power plant fit into the third of our suggested city car crossover options, Suzuki's Ignis, which has an 83 horsepower unit and at the time of this test sold in the £16,250 to £17,250 bracket. All of these three alternatives will be better for you than an Aygo Cross if you regularly need to use the back seat. But none feel as modern and none of them are as good to drive or as trendy to look at, which will be crucial. Toyota's generosity in terms of standard equipment will also be a significant selling point, as we're about to see. All Aygo Cross models come with automatic headlights, daytime running lights, remote central locking, powered mirrors and alloy wheels. Standard interior features across the range include air conditioning and leather steering wheel trim, plus a reasonable standard of media kit. Even the Pure variant gets a 7-inch Toyota Touch central multimedia touchscreen with Bluetooth and a 4-speaker DAB audio tuner. But what would really sell us this car, if we were a parent buying it for a newly qualified youngster, would be the fact that even the base Pure version comes with a full package of Toyota Safety Sense, advanced camera safety features, most of which are unknown for this class of car. There's an autonomous braking pre-collision system that can also detect pedestrians and cyclists, so only in the daytime, and also will highlight hazards when you're making a turn at an intersection. The Toyota Safety Sense package also provides full-range adaptive cruise control, along with road sign assist, lane tracing assist to keep you in lane, and automatic high beam. All this on a city car. More usual passive safety features don't get ignored either. There are 6 SRS airbags, 2 ISOFIX child seat fixings in the back, a tyre pressure warning system, hill start assist control, a speed limiter for manual models, and an e-call system that alerts the authorities with your GPS location if the airbags go off. Plus, there's the usual electronic assistance for braking, traction, and stability control. Big alloy wheels are also a part of Aygo Cross ownership. The base Pure spec model has 17-inch rims. Edge grade, of course, gives you much more, recognisable compared to its base counterpart by larger 18-inch alloys, rear privacy glass, front fog lights, extra exterior styling details, and a bi-tone metallic paint finish that extends the contrast black finish from the roof to cover the hatch and rear quarters. At this level in the range, you also get to specify a large power-operated canvas folding roof. Inside, at edge level, you get automatic air conditioning and a slightly larger 8-inch central Toyota Touch multimedia display. If you can stretch to the top of the range exclusive model we have here, you'll be favoured with full LED headlights along with smart entry and start keyless entry, all-round parking sensors, and Toyota's useful intelligent clearance sonar system with auto brake, which prevents you from reversing into things outside your sight line. Inside, in an exclusive model, it all feels a bit plusher thanks to combination cloth and synthetic leather upholstery, a wireless phone charger, and a high level of media connectivity. This comes courtesy of the Toyota Smart Connect multimedia system with its 9-inch high-definition display, which gives access to cloud-based navigation, up-to-the-moment road event information, access to useful connected services, and over-the-air updates for no-fuss software upgrades. With all Aygo Cross models, owners will be able to remotely interact with their car by the MyT smartphone app, which aims to provide a seamless user experience, allowing customers to keep track of various vehicle data information, such as driving analytics, fuel levels, warning alerts, and a vehicle tracker. You'd want a car of this kind to be economical, and sure enough, the Aygo Cross is capable of up to 58.8 mpg on the combined cycle while emitting up to 109 grams per kilometre of CO2. Those figures apply to both manual and CVT auto variants. Toyota reckon these efficiency readings are competitive with mild hybrid rivals, which is accurate. A mild hybrid Suzuki Ignis manages 56.9 mpg and 112 grams per kilometre. And the brand thinks that the Aygo Cross stats we've quoted are good enough to make unnecessary the introduction of an electrified version of this car. The key here, according to Toyota, is to keep this model affordable and provide a combustion vehicle small car option for urban folk who don't have access to charging points. Insurance ratings will be key for these people. They start at Group 6A for pure and edge spec cars, rising to 7A for this plusher exclusive trim. The benefit in kind rating is 26% for a base pure manual model, or 27% for the rest of the range, and annual VED road tax will be £170 for a manual model or £190 for an auto. You can check how close you're getting to the quoted efficiency figures by keeping an eye on the various screen readouts. This top spec model's larger monitor has a fuel consumption section divided into current and history, and a vehicle info screen showing your driving range plus average MPG can be displayed on the instrument screen in front of you. All Aygo Cross models come with up to 10 years Toyota Relax warranty cover. And after an initial 3 years or 60,000 miles, owners can extend their car's warranty by a further 1 year or 10,000 miles each time they have their vehicle serviced at an authorised Toyota centre, in line with its service schedule. Plus, as standard, Aygo Cross buyers get 5 years of pan-European roadside breakdown assistance, a 3-year paint warranty, and 12 years of anti-perforation cover. There's a dedicated My Toyota website that allows you to book a service online, and Toyota has a fixed price servicing plan, so you'll know in advance exactly how much any work will cost before you check into a dealer. You could also take advantage of the optional prepaid service plan that dealer will offer at point of purchase, this enabling owners to cover the cost of routine maintenance with monthly or one-off payments in advance. Toyota describes this as the first true urban crossover, a claim which will be controversial to owners of cars like Suzuki's Ignis and Fiat's Panda Cross. But these are older designs, and this one offers a bit more visual pizzazz than the only other crossover option in the city car segment, Kia's Picanto Crossline. Yes, the Aygo Cross is quite feebly powered, but on a car of this kind, that matters less than Toyota's ambitious pricing here, something that makes upper spec variants like this one difficult to justify. And even by city car standards, it's very cramped in the back. On the plus side, though, you get a completely new standard of safety tech for a car of this kind, one that would embarrass most super minis from the next class up. And this car's fashionable vibe is as trendy as a car like this needs to be. As a result, we could see the Aygo Cross selling quite well and embarrassing other brands who've abandoned this sector. Not everyone who wants a really small car can afford a small EV, and if you fit into this category, this funky little Toyota represents quite an appealing option. So, the city car segment isn't dead after all. It just needed a different approach.